All right, friends, buckle up because this is the story of how I discovered my wife's secret girlfriend getaways were anything but innocent. It all started when I stumbled upon a revelation that would leave you scratching your heads and reaching for your pitchforks. So picture this. My wife Emily and I have been married for 5 blissful years. Or so I thought. We met by chance. I was sitting in a cozy little cafe during my lunch break, desperately trying to avoid the pile of work waiting for me back at the office. As I sipped on my cappuccino, I couldn't help but notice a woman sitting alone at a nearby table. She had this captivating smile that could light up a room. Feeling a surge of courage, I decided to make my move. I casually strolled over and asked if the seat across from her was taken. She looked up, slightly surprised, and gestured for me to sit down. Score. We started chatting, and it turned out we had a lot in common. We both hated Mondays, loved cheesy movies, and had an unhealthy obsession with cats. It was like we were 2 peas in a pod. As our conversation flowed effortlessly, I couldn't help but be drawn to her infectious laughter. It was like music to my ears, drowning out the noise of the cafe. We exchanged stories and jokes, each one funnier than the last. It felt like we were in our own little comedy club. Time flew by, and before we knew it, our lunch breaks were coming to an end. Reluctantly, we exchanged numbers and promised to meet up again soon. As I walked back to the office, a goofy grin plastered on my face. I couldn't help but feel like I had just stumbled upon something truly special. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Our casual lunchtime encounter had blossomed into a full-blown romance. We explored new restaurants together, went on weekend getaways, and even survived a disastrous attempt at cooking a fancy dinner together. Let's just say the fire alarm got quite the workout. Naturally, after all this, we got married. Emily's job as an executive at a tech firm often left her stressed and in need of some girl time, as she put it. I didn't mind at all, in fact, I encouraged it. Everyone needs a break, right? These getaways happened every few months, and I was always cool with it. Her so-called girlfriends would rent a fancy cabin, hit the spa, and just relax. Emily would return refreshed, and our relationship benefited from it. Or so I believed. One sunny Saturday, I decided to surprise her at her favorite spa retreat, a place called Serene Haven. I had a bouquet of roses and a box of chocolates in hand, ready to surprise my hard-working wife. Little did I know, the real surprise was waiting for me. As I walked into the reception area of Serene Haven, I couldn't help but admire the posh surroundings. The marble floors, the soothing waterfall in the corner, and the impeccable service made it clear why Emily loved this place. I approached the receptionist, a young woman named Sarah, to inquire about Emily's whereabouts. "Hey there," I said with a smile. "I'm looking for my wife, Emily. She's here with her friends for a weekend getaway." Sarah looked up from her computer screen and gave me a polite smile. "Sure. Let me check for you. Can you please provide her last name?" "Of course, it's Anderson." Sarah's fingers danced across the keyboard, her eyebrows furrowing slightly. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't have any record of an Emily Anderson staying here this weekend." My heart sank. I thought there must be some mistake. "Are you sure? She comes here regularly with her friends for these spa weekends." Sarah hesitated for a moment, then leaned in a bit closer, as if sharing a secret. "I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but there is an Emily who has been a frequent guest here. However, she always checks in alone, and she's registered under a different last name." I blinked, trying to process this information. "A different last name? Are you saying she's using a fake name?" Sarah nodded. "Yes, sir. She goes by Emily Mitchell. But please don't mention I told you this. We value our guests' privacy." My mind was racing. Why would Emily use a fake name? And why was she coming here alone when she always claimed to be with her girlfriends? "I won't say a word," I assured her, my voice trembling. As I left the spa, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Emily had some explaining to do, and I was determined to get to the bottom of this mystery. Little did I know that my journey for the truth would lead me down a path of unexpected twists and turns. After my jaw hit the floor at the hotel receptionist's revelation, I needed to do some major sleuthing. If my wife Emily was sneaking around behind my back, I needed to know the full extent of her devious plan. Revenge, after all, required precise information. I slipped out of the hotel, leaving the poor receptionist baffled and bewildered. It was clear that Emily wasn't here for a girls' weekend, at least not in the traditional sense. I couldn't just confront her without all the facts, though. I needed to gather evidence like a seasoned detective. Back at home, I started my covert operation. I dusted off my old laptop, logged into my trusty social media accounts, and fired up my amateur detective skills. First stop, Emily's Facebook profile. I scrolled through her posts, looking for any suspicious activity. That's when I found it, a group chat with her so-called girlfriends. The conversation was filled with emojis, inside jokes, and laugh-out-loud anecdotes about their wild weekend adventures. But it was all a facade. The timestamps on the messages told a different story. Emily had been typing away furiously during the time she was supposedly out with her friends. My heart sank as I read messages like, "I can't believe we're getting away with this," and "He'll never suspect a thing." It was crystal clear that my wife was orchestrating an elaborate ruse, and her friends were in on it. But the burning question remained. What was the purpose of this charade? Why would she go to such lengths to deceive me? I needed more information. I knew I couldn't tackle this mission alone, so I reached out to my trusty sidekick and best friend, Mike. He was a tech whiz and had a knack for digging up digital dirt. We met up at our favorite coffee shop, and I spilled the beans on the bizarre situation. "Mike, you won't believe what's happening," I whispered, leaning in closer as if we were in some spy thriller. I recounted the entire hotel receptionist saga and showed him the incriminating chat messages. Mike's eyes widened as he absorbed the details. "This is some next-level deception, buddy," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "But we can get to the bottom of this. We just need to be one step ahead of her." We hatched a plan to set up a fake business trip of my own, complete with fabricated messages and meetings. If Emily thought she could outwit me, she had another thing coming. It was time to turn the tables and unleash my own web of deceit. Revenge was a dish best served cold, and I was about to make it ice cold. As I typed out fake emails and sent bogus text messages to my unsuspecting wife, I couldn't help but smirk. Emily had underestimated me, but I was about to show her that two could play this game. Little did she know, the husband she thought she knew was about to become her worst nightmare. The stage was set, and my plan was in motion. I embarked on my so-called business trip, leaving Emily behind with a web of deceit so intricate, even I had trouble keeping track of it all. The key to my revenge lay in convincing her that I was away for an extended period, far from her prying eyes. I checked into a nearby hotel and sent her occasional messages about my meetings and work dinners. Meanwhile, Mike and I continued our covert operation, gathering more evidence about Emily's shady activities. We started by following her every move, discreetly of course. Mike used his tech wizardry to install a tracking app on her phone without her knowledge. We watched in real time as she met up with her supposed girlfriends, all while I was miles away, attending my fabricated business meetings. It was during one of these clandestine stakeouts that we stumbled upon something that sent shivers down my spine. Emily and her friends weren't just going for spa days and brunches. No, they were headed to a casino, and it wasn't for the slot machines. I watched as Emily entered the lavish establishment with a group of women, dressed to the nines. The glitzy casino was a far cry from the innocent girls' weekend she had portrayed it as. This wasn't about spending quality time with friends. It was about indulging in a secret life of extravagance and thrill-seeking. As I observed her at the blackjack table, my anger grew. Her fingers tapped nervously on the table, beating out a simple melody. But now it didn't seem to me as cute as it was at the time of our acquaintance. I felt all her emotions. Taking a seat at the blackjack table, Emily exuded confidence, channeling their inner James Bond. She were dealt a pair of aces, causing their heart to skip a beat. This was her moment to shine, or so she thought. Filled with excitement, Emily made the impulsive decision to go all in, adopting the mantra of, "You only live once." The dealer raised an eyebrow at this bold move, but proceeded nonetheless. The cards were dealt, and a wide grin spread across her face. However, her joy was short-lived as the dealer revealed a blackjack. Panic and horror washed over her like a tidal wave. Flushed with embarrassment, Emily could feel the weight of the entire casino's gaze upon them. Her luck had quickly evaporated, leaving them feeling anything but fortunate. To add insult to injury, the subsequent rounds proved to be just as disastrous. Lady Luck had abandoned her completely. Every time they hit, they went bust. Every time she stood, the dealer miraculously pulled out a winning hand. It seemed as though the cards themselves held a personal grudge against Emily. I kept watching her crash. Emily was gambling away our hard-earned money, all the while thinking she had pulled the wool over my eyes. It was a betrayal that cut deep. I couldn't help but think back to the hotel receptionist's words. "Your wife is quite the gambler," she had said with a knowing smile. It all made sense now. Emily had been using these supposed weekend getaways as a cover for her reckless gambling habit, and her friends were her enablers. Mike and I decided to dig deeper into her financial activities. We accessed her bank statements, and what we found was shocking. Large sums of money had been withdrawn from our joint account and transferred to an unknown source. It was as if Emily was trying to hide her gambling losses by siphoning off our shared funds. It was time to confront her, but not before I had gathered enough evidence to ensure she couldn't weasel her way out of this one. Revenge was no longer just a desire, it was a necessity. My marriage hung in the balance, and I wasn't about to let her deception tear us apart. Armed with the damning evidence we had collected, I waited for Emily's return from her latest girls' weekend. Little did she know that the tables had turned, and the game was no longer in her favor. It was time for the ultimate showdown, and I was prepared to reveal the extent of her deceit. As I watched her approach our front door, a rush of emotions washed over me. This was the moment of truth, and I was determined to make her face the consequences of her actions. Revenge, it seemed, was about to take center stage in our marriage. The door swung open, and there she stood, looking like she had just returned from another one of her innocent getaways. Emily's face lit up with a feigned smile as she saw me waiting for her. Little did she know that her carefully constructed facade was about to crumble. "Hey, sweetheart," she greeted me, trying to hug me as if nothing was amiss. I sidestepped her embrace, my anger bubbling just below the surface. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold and unyielding. I motioned for her to step inside, and as she did, I closed the door behind her, sealing her fate. Emily's expression shifted from cheerful to uneasy as she sensed the seriousness of the situation. She glanced around, perhaps expecting an intervention from one of her supposed girlfriends or a hidden camera crew. But there was no escape from the truth this time. I gestured for her to sit down in the living room, a room that had witnessed countless moments of joy and intimacy in our marriage. Today, it would bear witness to something entirely different. I took a deep breath and began to lay out the evidence before her. Bank statements, photos of her at the casino, and the GPS logs from her phone tracking her every move during her weekend getaways were all presented in damning detail. Emily's face grew paler with every piece of evidence I revealed. "You've been lying to me, Emily," I said, my voice heavy with disappointment. "Those weekends with your girlfriends weren't what you claimed them to be. You've been gambling, and it's tearing our marriage apart." she stammered, attempting to come up with an excuse, but the evidence was irrefutable. The truth had caught up with her, and she had nowhere to hide. Tears welled up in her eyes as the weight of her deception pressed down on her. "I didn't think you'd understand," she finally admitted, her voice trembling. "I was just trying to escape the stress, to have some fun." My anger began to ebb, replaced by a profound sadness. I had loved this woman, shared my life with her, and now I was witnessing the unraveling of our relationship. The revenge I had sought suddenly felt bittersweet. "I wish you had talked to me," I said, my voice softer now. "We could have faced your problems together, but instead, you chose to deceive me." Emily wiped away her tears and looked up at me with a mix of regret and desperation. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her words heavy with remorse. The confrontation had taken an unexpected turn. My thirst for revenge had led me to expose her secrets, but now I was left grappling with the consequences. Our marriage was hanging by a thread, and the road to recovery seemed treacherous and uncertain. As we sat in the dimly lit living room, the weight of our shattered trust and broken promises hung heavy in the air. The battle for revenge had left scars on both of us, scars that would take time and effort to heal. Whether our love could withstand this ordeal remained an open question, one that only time would answer. The days following that tumultuous confrontation were some of the most challenging of our marriage. Emily and I faced each other with a mixture of anger, disappointment, and regret. Our home, once a sanctuary of love and understanding, felt like a battleground of emotions. We decided to seek professional help to salvage what remained of our relationship. Our therapist helped us navigate the treacherous waters of trust, communication, and forgiveness. It was a painful process, but gradually we began to rebuild the shattered pieces of our marriage. Emily took steps to address her gambling addiction, attending support groups and therapy sessions to confront the underlying issues that had driven her to deceive me. It wasn't easy, but I saw genuine remorse in her eyes, and that gave me hope. As for my quest for revenge, I realized that it had been a double-edged sword. Yes, it had exposed Emily's deception, but it had also nearly destroyed our marriage. I learned that revenge could be a destructive force, one that consumed not only its target, but also the one seeking it. Over time, as we worked on healing and rebuilding trust, I found it in my heart to forgive Emily. It wasn't a quick or easy process, but forgiveness was the only path forward if we wanted to salvage our relationship. One evening, as we sat on our porch watching the sunset, I took Emily's hand in mine. "We've been through a lot," I said, my voice soft and filled with emotion. "But I believe in second chances. I believe in us." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she squeezed my hand. "I love you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "And I'm so sorry for what I've put you through." We leaned in and shared a kiss filled with the promise of a fresh start. It was a moment of redemption, a moment where we chose to let go of the past and embrace the future together. Our journey wasn't without its challenges, but as the weeks turned into months, our love grew stronger. We rebuilt our marriage on a foundation of honesty, trust, and open communication. The scars of our past were a constant reminder of the price we had paid, but they also served as a testament to our resilience. Revenge had led me down a dark path, but it had ultimately brought us to a place of forgiveness and redemption. Our love had weathered the storm, emerging stronger than ever before. And as we sat on our porch, hand in hand, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky, I couldn't help but believe that sometimes, even the darkest moments could lead to a brighter future.